Okay, let's wrap this course up. I'm going to take all the major jots and tittles and trinkets from this course and just tie it up in a quick 5 to 10 minute talk. Things are looking pretty bad, in all honesty. Earth is unequivocally getting warmer. The data shows that every single year we're getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Every single year we're setting new carbon dioxide maximums, new ones. Every single year it's getting worse and worse and worse. 2020, which was just the year before this year that I'm recording this, tied with 2016 for the hottest year on record. We had a La Nina in 2020, and La Ninas typically cause cooler than average temperatures. And yet we were warmer. Human-induced climate change was able to actually drown out the effects of a La Nina. That's insane to think about. Things are looking pretty bad. The future definitely looks scary. If we do nothing, we can see upwards of 5 to 6 degrees of additional warming. The world documented in the documentary Earth 2100 could very well be our future. A world where society collapses, where life on Earth becomes very, very unviable. Things can be quite scary. But the reality is there's hope as well. The truth is that some of the realistic scenarios aren't that bad. We can keep warming below 2 degrees Celsius. And in fact, I would even argue that we can keep it below 1.5, which is sort of the dreamy number. We can keep it below 1.5. If we do that, though, we need to do a lot of work. We need to keep turning lights off. We need to keep leaving our car home more often. We need to keep looking for more efficient technologies. We need to keep planting more trees. We need to keep supporting more conservationists. We need to keep doing that. But the good news is we're well on our way. A lot has already been done. Here in California, for example, we have gone tremendous leaps and bounds in improving our infrastructure so that we can better fight climate change. Here in the United States, carbon dioxide emissions are down. They're down significantly. We have actually seen a pretty good decrease from early 2000s to now. Carbon dioxide emissions have dropped here in the United States. Part of this is because of the efforts of places like California. The problem becomes, while our carbon emissions are going down, other places are seeing big increases. And this leads to a very important moral question. Countries like China and India, which have massive populations and have honestly, for most of the time, been very, very, very held down. They've been very, very, very underdeveloped. Well, in the last 20 years, and I can guarantee you in the next 20 years, they are coming up. They are working their way up. They're going to beat us probably very soon in the race for the world's largest economy. That being said, we can't allow them to develop using the same technologies we use to develop. Because in order for us to develop the way that we have had to emit a lot of carbon dioxide. We cannot afford to do that on a China level scale or an India level scale with populations 3, 4, 5 times as big as our population. That is simply not a viable option. But we also can't, in good conscience, tell them, nope, you can't develop. You got to take one for the team. You can't, nope, you got to cut back. We got to develop all we want. We got to do everything we wanted, but no, you can't. You got to cut back. We can't do that. That's not feasible either, and that's not fair either. I hate those three words, but it's true. That's not fair. So the question then becomes, how do we help them develop? How do we help them industrialize? That being said, we still have a future. The days are continuing to tick by. It's 2021 now. It'll be 2022 before you know it. 2023 before you know it. 2025 before you know it. 2030 before you know it. 2040, 2050, 2060, 2070. Many of us will be alive to actually see those years roll in. We still have a future. The question becomes, what kind of future do we want to have? Do we want to have a future that is bright, that is welcoming, that is livable, that is equitable? Do we want to have a future that is clean? Or do we want to continue going down the path of destruction and instead have a future that is destructive, that is devastated? Do we want to leave a world to our children and our grandchildren that is worse than the world that we inherited? So we all still have a future. That being said, getting educated is the first part. The fact that you took this class, the fact that you signed up for this class and all the classes you could take. I know most of you are just trying to knock out your GE requirement. I get that. I hope I've helped with that. And I hope I've helped make it as painless as possible. The reality is, by taking this class, you have learned a lot of really valuable information about climate change, even if you don't think you have. You've learned a lot of really valuable information. And as G.I. Joe used to say, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The other half of the battle is, what will you do next? Here's some things I encourage you to do next. First off, be practical. In changing your lifestyle to become more eco-friendly, be practical. Be realistic. One of the things that I honestly, to get on my soapbox, one of the things I really hate about some conservationists and some environmentalists is they will say things like, well, in order to save our planet, you need to raise your thermostat to 85 degrees at night in the summertime. Guess what? If you tell people to do that, they're going to tell you to go F off. Or the rumor that somebody had about Joe Biden, Joe Biden telling people you got to cut back your meat consumption by like 95%. You can only eat one hamburger a month. Guess what? People aren't going to listen to that. Telling people, no, you have to go drop $20,000 in solar panels right now. Or dump your car and go buy a Tesla. The reality is that for many people, those are not practical, those are not viable, those are not realistic expectations. And if we try to stick unrealistic expectations on people, we're going to get nothing in return. Instead, be realistic. What can you afford to do? Maybe instead of only eating one hamburger a month, maybe cut back on beef one meal a week. Maybe replace one beef meal with one chicken meal. There's lots of good chicken places out there. Just do that. And guess what? That has an impact. Turn off the light when you leave the room. That has an impact. If every one of us does that, and then if every person enrolled in our school did that, and if every person in our city did that, and then every person in our state did that, that would have a massive impact. So be realistic. Be vocal. Nothing that I have presented in this class is sacred. Nothing that I have presented in this class is sacred. You are free to use my videos. You are free to use my content in any way you see fit, other than distributing answers for like test purposes and stuff like that. You can't put this stuff on cheathero.com or on Chegg or spreading quiz answers. But other than that, nothing that I have put on here is sacred. Share these videos with your friends. Share what you've learned in this class with others. guess what? You are now educated about climate change. You now have a much better knowledge about it than most of the general public. Put that to work. Be active. I've really tried my best not to get political in this class. Unfortunately, I've gotten political at times. Trash mouthing Trump's tweets, or just a moment ago, I trash mouthed Joe Biden's burger policy. But actually consider a political candidate's stance on climate change. I'm not going to say who I voted for in the last election, but a big factor for me was the Paris Agreement. Listen to what they have to say and consider their stance. Are they going to take this issue seriously, or are they dismissive of it? Are they hostile of it? How efficient is the food you're eating? Like I mentioned, even cutting out one beef meal a week and replacing it with chicken, that one meal can actually that can actually cut your carbon emissions just from that meal into a fourth of what it was, just by swapping out the beef for the chicken. Just by swapping out the beef for the chicken. Imagine if everybody did that with just one meal. What impact you can have. Look at some of the other meals here, or some of the other possibilities. How efficient is your travel? We've talked about this before. If you are driving by yourself in a gas guzzling car, you're not going very far and emitting a lot of carbon dioxide in the process. What if instead you were driving a smaller car? Or what if instead you were carpooling? Or what if instead you were taking a bus? Those things actually have a much better environmental impact, much lower carbon emissions than if you were to drive by yourself. All of that said, here's my final argument on climate change. If you skim through everything else, please listen to at least this. I would bet my life, and I bet my career, that so much of what I have said in this course is 100% accurate and is happening. Now, I'm not going to bet that on every little thing I've said in this course. Science does change and evolve, and we do gain better understanding over time. That being said, let's actually suppose for a second that it was all fake. Climate change isn't real. Earth is not warming up. We aren't causing it. It's not real. The truth is, the biggest sticking point for most people is that possibility that maybe this isn't real, or that we're not doing it. Many people want to believe that, because guess what? If this is true, if our Earth is warming up and if we are the cause of it, there is a moral imperative. Any person with a soul, any person with morals, is going to have to do something about it. That's just the reality. If this is real, we have to do something about it. So if you can pretend that it's not real, if you can deny it, then guess what? You don't have to change anything. But let me actually cut that argument out for a moment. Let's assume that it's all fake, that this is not happening. My argument is that yes, we should still change our way of living. We should still become more environmentally conscious. We should still become more carbon efficient. And here's why. Yes, we have to deal with the inconveniences of that transition. We have to deal with maybe paying more for gas while we end up transitioning over to hydrogen cars or electric cars or hybrid cars or solar cars or biofuel powered cars. We have to deal with that pain in that process. And that's just one example, or having to pay more for solar panels, or so on. But think about everything else in your life. Think about what you have been taught, whether it has been religiously, whether it has been in school, whether it has been from your parents. A very key tenet of successful human living is to be a good steward of what you have. I've always been told it's about time, talent, and treasures, making the most of your time, making the most of your gifts, making the most of what you have. Because if you do that, those things will last longer and they end up benefiting more people. Well, I argue that our environment and our planet is one of our treasures. Being a good steward of what we have is essential to making it last. There is a proverb, it's not a biblical proverb, I looked, that states that a fool and his gold are soon parted. Meaning those who don't take good care of what they have lose it. But think about our planet. Even if climate change isn't happening, if we continue to recklessly use our natural resources, we're going to run out. They're not going to last long. And when they run out, that transition of having to live without them is going to be way more painful than phasing them out. So think about all of the benefits of becoming better environmental stewards that don't involve preventing warming. Things that just saving money. People who have solar panels put on their houses, yeah, they pay a bunch up front, but as time goes on, their PG&E bills become smaller, their electric bills become smaller, their utility bills become smaller. And in some places, the electric company actually purchases power from them. And so instead of getting a bill each month, they get a check each month. Think about how cool that would be. Breathing in cleaner air. Even if climate change isn't real, air pollution is real. Air pollution is something that we're very, very, very concerned about. 10 out of 10 doctors say air pollution's bad. I don't know if that's actually true, but I would argue that most people pretty unequivocally agree that air pollution's bad. Well, guess what? If we actually become more conservational with what we have, we're going to improve our air quality. Being able to stretch out our natural resources. Again, taking those same gifts that we have that may last us another 20 years and stretching them out to 50 years or 100 years. And then being able to make that transition a lot easier. The reality is the benefits are endless. So my argument to you is that even if all of this climate change stuff ends up being disproven someday, which once again, I would bet on my life that it's not. But even if it was, the benefits of switching over to a greener lifestyle, to switching over to a more eco-friendly and climate-friendly lifestyle far outweigh the pain. So let's do it. Let's do it. At the end of the day, the choice is yours. Each and every one of you now has the information you need to make the decision that you need to make. Let's go save the world. Thank you for taking my class. Thank you for watching this. I'm still available if you have questions. Thank you for putting up with, at time, bad recordings or delays in getting things posted. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Let's go save the world.